Rock Lee stole the show in Naruto, plain and simple. For most of OG Naruto, the Gaara vs. Lee fight was the best fight in the entire series. Me personally, I think the only fight in part 1 that's better is Naruto vs. Sasuke. Even outside of the fight though, Lee's character shined in part 1 in a way I don't even think Kishimoto himself expected. This bold-cut demon right here left a bigger impact on fans than anyone ever expected after seeing him for the first time, and in this video I want to talk about the 3 main reasons for that. The first reason Lee became such an impactful side character is simply that he's relatable. His entire life as a ninja, he was an underdog because he was born without a talent for ninjutsu and genjutsu. I think as humans we're naturally drawn to rooting for the underdogs, not because we don't like natural talent, but because we respect the effort it takes to go toe-to-toe with the clear favorite. The reason the Lee vs. Gaara fight is considered one of the best fights in all of Naruto is like 95% because of Rock Lee and his story. Seeing how hard he worked to get to where he was despite barely having anything going for him makes us as the audience empathize with him. Prodigies or favorites or whatever you want to call them tend to have a huge sense of arrogance. We saw this with Neji, who never failed to remind Lee he was born a failure and because of that he'll always be one. Underdogs tend to be the opposite in that they're constantly working to prove their worthiness, and there's something beautiful about someone going against all odds and grinding their way up from nothing. The most interesting lesson from Lee's character that I think a lot of people miss is that, now follow me while I say this because it's a very complex concept, but the only way you fail is if you don't try. Often people attach success and failure to their achievements or lack thereof. Some people might say Lee is a failure because he ended up losing his fight against Gaara, but his character serves to prove a different point. Lee's entire goal as a shinobi wasn't to win the fight against Gaara or even Neji, even though he looked forward to beating him. His main goal was to prove that he's a ninja worthy of the same respect as everyone else around him despite his lack of natural born talent. After seeing the effort he displayed in his fight with Gaara, nobody could deny he was a genius. In the words of Guy Sensei, Lee wasn't a genius in terms of natural talent, but he was a genius in effort and hard work. The best definition for success I ever heard is the active realization of a worthy goal or ideal, meaning as soon as you start actively working toward achieving a goal, you're already a success, and the only way to fail is to give up. And this is what makes Lee so impactful. He teaches the importance of realizing that success is both objective and subjective. It's so much easier to focus on objective success because it comes with physical evidence like awards, status, and wealth, but the real success comes from your growth, effort, and discipline. This is the best mindset to have because a lot of the time outcomes are out of your control, so attaching your self-identity as a failure or success to outcomes is terrible for your mental. Lee is the perfect example of this. He didn't let the outcome of the Gaara fight define him, and he continued to work just as hard. Lee's underdog story is relatable because being born a natural talent is rare. Most of us can relate to Lee in the sense of having to grind our way up from the bottom. You can probably think back to a time when you were an underdog in an area that you wanted to be great in. For me, it was actually with this YouTube channel. I started out with no video creating skills at all, just a passion and dedication for the craft that no one can take away. There's no one milestone or achievement that I can reach that will automatically make me successful, and vice versa, there's no threshold that makes me a failure. If I got dragged down by videos underperforming, I wouldn't have made it as far as I did. For that reason, the same way Lee continues to work just as hard after losing to Gaara, I look at me putting in work as me being successful, and that's a much easier mindset to manage. The second reason Lee is so impactful is because even more than just being relatable, Lee embodies the core themes of Naruto. Themes like perseverance, self-belief, and fighting against all odds. His insane work ethic was a representation of his perseverance. Perseverance which stemmed from an unshakable self-belief. Before anyone else believed in him, Lee believed in himself, which is one of the most valuable lessons you can take away from Lee's character. Before even Guy Sensei saw the potential in Lee, he saw it in himself. This is what kept him going when he messed up his training when no one was looking, or at least when he thought no one was looking. If you want to achieve any meaningful goal, you have to believe in yourself before anyone else will believe in you. Lee realized this, and that's what allowed him to fight even though all the odds were stacked against him. If you saw my video about why I like Naruto's first arc so much, one of the reasons is because it introduces the concept of mirroring, which is used a lot between characters throughout the show. Rock Lee is an exact mirror for Naruto in terms of all 3 major themes I mentioned before. Both characters set goals that cause them to face hardships that require insane levels of perseverance. Naruto's journey to becoming Hokage was full of trials and tribulations, just like Lee's journey to being a respectable ninja while lacking any talent for ninjutsu or genjutsu. For both Naruto and Rock Lee, it was their self-belief that sparked and fueled their insane perseverance. They didn't just work hard, they believed their effort would lead to something greater, even before anyone else did. Both their self-belief and perseverance led to them having the will to fight against the odds being stacked against them. For Lee, this looked like pushing through the pain and training even after doctors said he never would be able to be a shinobi again. For Naruto, it was becoming Hokage when the majority of the village hated him and also learning how to control the nine-tailed fox's power as a child. Both Naruto and Lee were underdogs who worked their way up to being respectable ninja. Some people might disagree with calling Naruto an underdog because he was born with the nine-tailed fox, but he still had to learn to control it. Lee, on the other hand, never had that kind of hidden power, and that's what makes his story so compelling. He didn't just represent the main themes of the show, he pushed them further. He proved that even without talent, you could become someone to be respected. That's what leads me to my final reason Lee stole the show. He challenged what it meant to be a respectable ninja. In a world surrounded by people with magical eyes and thousand-year-old demon spirits sealed inside them, Lee carved his own lane as a shinobi. He didn't let the labels others placed or didn't place on him define his identity. He took his idea of what a respectable ninja is and forged his way toward that identity regardless of what the rest of the world said. While his rivals were born with abilities and talents that caused them to be seen as geniuses, Lee became a different type of genius. Honestly though, that's the beauty of life, the fact that you can carve your own lane in whatever it is that you do. Something I notice is that all-time greats in any lane, whether it's music, sports, or whatever they tend to do, say the most important aspect of working on their craft is shutting down outside noise. This is important because as we see from Lee's story, every time he was told he couldn't do something, he ignored that and made away from himself. When his peers told him he'd never become a ninja without ninjutsu or genjutsu, he proved them wrong. When he was told his life as a ninja was over after his loss to Gaara, he shut out all the noise and trained despite the odds being against him. When it seems like the odds are stacked against you and you're not gonna succeed because of current circumstances, the last thing you need is an outside voice confirming your self-doubt. I think this is the part of the video where I'm supposed to say a quote along the lines of hard work beats talent when talent fails to work hard. However, that's not true. While hard work does increase your chances of a favorable outcome, it doesn't guarantee that you beat someone with talent. Gaara never trained a day in his life and Lee was unable to beat him in the Chunin exams, and even later on Lee couldn't beat Kimimaro and Gaara was able to defeat him. It's unfair to call Lee a failure because he lost these fights when his goal from the beginning was to become a respectable ninja, which he did achieve. The most important takeaway from Lee's story is that rather than attaching your self-identity as a success or failure to outcomes you can't control, you should focus on what you can control, which is how hard you work. Just as much as Naruto represents perseverance, self-belief, and fighting against all odds, so does Lee. His story is relatable because most people relate to underdog stories, and all these elements together are what made Lee become the star of the show as a side character. If you made it this far in the video, make sure to leave a like, drop a comment down below. I love you, and I'm out. Peace.